In 1987, cartographers officially split the Aral Sea into two bodies of water on their maps. By 2000, they had removed the southern half entirely, a sea that had existed for millions of years, once the fourth largest lake on the planet had been reduced to a toxic desert. Ships sat rusting in sand dozens of kilometers from any water. Storms carrying 20 million tons of poisoned salt per year swept across a region where children were dying at rates comparable to war zones. The world wrote it off. Then, in 2005, a concrete dam 13 kilometers long was completed across a strait in Kazakhstan. Within 7 months, not the 3 to 5 years international experts had predicted the water level rose by 3.3 meters. By 2006, the water volume had almost doubled. Fish species that hadn't been seen in decades appeared in the northern basin without being planted there by anyone. People who had left their fishing villages decades earlier started coming back. A sea that was officially dead had started, slowly and measurably, to come back to life. And the story of how it happened, and why it almost didn't involve a mayor with no budget, a sand dike that collapsed and killed 2 people, and a physics principle you can test with a cup and a baking tray. If you believe there are things being done on this planet that most people should know about, subscribe and stay here, because this one deserves to be understood. To understand the scale of what was lost, you need to picture what the Aral Sea actually was. In the 1950s, it held more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of water, an inland sea fed by 2 of Central Asia's largest river systems. The Sardaya entered from the north, the Amu Darya entered from the south. Together, they delivered approximately 56 billion cubic meters of fresh water annually. The sea supported 40,000 tons of commercial fish per year. Pike perch, bream, carp, roach, and the fishing industry built around it employed tens of thousands of households across Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Port cities like Aralsk operated active harbors. Processing plants ran continuously. The regional economy was built around water. The climate around the sea was moderated by its presence. The enormous water mass absorbed summer heat and released it through winter, creating conditions that supported agriculture and human settlement across a wide surrounding zone. None of this existed because of any human engineering decision. It existed because 2 rivers had been flowing into a closed basin for geological time, and the balance between inflow and evaporation had maintained a stable water level. That balance was about to be deliberately broken. In the 1950s, Soviet central planners looked at Central Asia and decided it should grow cotton, not modestly, not experimentally, at industrial scale, producing cotton for the entire Soviet Empire from a single region. Cotton is among the most water-intensive crops on Earth. Growing it in a hot, semi-arid environment at the scale the planners required meant redirecting enormous volumes of water away from their natural courses and across the desert to irrigated fields. The engineering response was the largest irrigation network ever built. More than 30,000 kilometers of canals, 45 dams, and 80 reservoirs were constructed across the Amu Darya and Sardaya basins. The problem was in the construction. Approximately 90% of this canal network consisted of trenches dug directly into loose desert sand, no concrete lining, no sealed base, no cover against evaporation. Water poured into these channels and immediately began disappearing into the ground or evaporating into dry air before it reached any field. Estimates suggest that between 25 and 75% of the water that entered the canal system never reached the roots of a cotton plant. The rivers that had fed the Aral Sea for millennia were now feeding a leaking sand network instead. Annual inflow to the sea, previously 56 billion cubic meters, began declining every decade. By the 1980s, it had reached 0. No water was reaching the Aral Sea anymore. None when the inflow stopped. What followed was not a gradual decline. It was a cascade. As water levels dropped, the sea became shallower. Shallow water absorbs solar heat faster than deep water, accelerating evaporation. Faster evaporation dropped the level further. Each reduction created conditions that made the next reduction faster. The system fed on itself. In 1987, The water level had fallen low enough that the sea physically divided into two separate bodies. The North Aral Sea remained in Kazakhstan. The larger South Aral Sea sat in Uzbekistan. They no longer connected. 60,000 square kilometers of seabed were exposed to open air, the equivalent of a new desert appearing on Earth within a human lifetime. This new wasteland is called the Aralsk Desert, and it is the youngest desert on the planet. The exposed lakebed was not ordinary sand. Decades of agricultural runoff had deposited pesticides, fertilizers, and heavy metals, including toxic compounds from Soviet-era cotton farming, into the sediment. When the water retreated, those compounds crystallized into the surface crust. 10 major storms per year now carry more than 20 million tons of this toxic dust into the atmosphere, depositing it across a region covering parts of multiple countries. The infant mortality rate in surrounding communities reached 72 per 1,000, driven by contaminated water sources and respiratory illness from the dust. Life expectancy dropped. Rates of throat cancer, kidney disease, and anemia among adults climbed to levels that attracted international medical researchers. The world looked at satellite images of rusting ships sitting in sand where water used to be and largely concluded the situation was irreversible. In 1992, a local mayor and a group of engineers in Kazakhstan made a decision the central government found laughable. They were going to block the Berg Strait, the narrow channel connecting the North Aral Sea to the South Aral Sea, using dump trucks and whatever material they could haul to the site. The physical logic was sound. The Sadaria River was still flowing into the North Aral Basin, but every drop of water that arrived immediately drained south through the Berg Strait into the vastly larger southern basin, where it evaporated within days. The north was like a bathtub being filled while the drain stayed open. If you blocked the drain even crudely, the north might hold water. With no significant budget and no government backing, they used hundreds of dump trucks to carry sand, soil, and rubble to the strait, dumping load after load until a rough dike 13 kilometers long crossed the channel. It worked. The water level in the North Aral began to rise. Fish appeared. For the first time in years, the air near the shore carried moisture. People who had watched the sea disappear watched it return, by degrees. To ground, they remembered standing in water. The dike held for 7 years. In 1999, a spring flood arrived with more force than the sand structure could absorb. The water pressure exceeded the dike's limits. It collapsed. 2 workers died. Every liter of water stored over 7 years rushed south and evaporated. Everything returned to zero. When World Bank engineers examined the collapsed sand dike, they did not conclude that the idea had failed. They concluded that the idea was right and only the material had been wrong. In 2001, the physical evidence from the sand dike's 7-year partial success convinced both the World Bank and the government of Kazakhstan to fund a proper structure. The project budget, $86 million. The Kokaral Dam, 13 kilometers long, built from millions of tons of compacted earth reinforced with high-strength concrete, was completed in August 2005. Its design operates on a principle the engineers described as the difference between a cup and a baking tray. Pour 1 liter of water onto a wide, flat tray and it evaporates in hours. Pour the same liter into a narrow, deep cup and it lasts days. The North Aral Basin, once sealed from the south, becomes the cup. The surface area exposed to sun and wind decreases as the depth increases. Less evaporating surface means the water level rises rather than spreading and disappearing. To prevent a repeat of 1999, the dam was equipped with a 9-gate digital spillway system. When the Sadaria floods in spring and water rises above the safe level, the gates open and release excess water south at 600 cubic meters per second. This release also carries a secondary function. It continuously flushes concentrated salt accumulation from the northern basin, acting as a slow filtration system for the water chemistry. International experts estimated it would take 3 to 5 years to reach the target depth of 42 meters. It took 7 months. By early 2006, the water level had risen 3.3 meters beyond the dam's completion baseline. The volume in the North Aral had grown from 14 billion to 27 billion cubic meters. The coastline, which had retreated 100 kilometers from the city of Aralsk over the previous decades, had advanced back to within 25 kilometers of the city. If this story is landing the way it should share it. Because what happened next is the part nobody predicted. Before the Kokaral Dam, the salinity of the North Aral Sea had reached 30 grams per litre, 3 times the concentration at which freshwater fish eggs can survive, as the dam held fresh water from the Sirdarya in the northern basin and flushed out accumulated salt through the spillway. Salinity fell. It dropped to 20 grams, then 15, then 10. It reached 8 grams per litre below the critical threshold of 10 grams at which native fish eggs can hatch and larvae can survive. No fish were introduced, no biological seeding program was implemented. The engineers restored the water chemistry and left the ecosystem to respond on its own. 22 fish species that had disappeared from the northern basin pike perch, bream, carp, roach migrated back upstream from the Sirdarya river system and re-established themselves in the sea within months of salinity reaching viable levels. Within years, coastal vegetation had returned across thousands of hectares of former exposed lakebed. More than 300 species of migratory birds, many of which had stopped using Central Asian flyways entirely during the drought decades, reappeared on the northern shore. The fishing industry rebuilt itself from 0 to 8,000 tons of commercial catch per year. 12 fish processing plants now operate along the northern coast. More than 3,000 fishermen are employed. Villages like Tastabek, where only a handful of elderly residents had remained, have seen their housing stock triple as younger people who left for cities in the 1990s and 2000s are returning. The seafood now meets international biological safety standards and is exported to markets in Europe and Asia. Stand on the Kokaral Dam today and look north. The water is there, waves, birds, fishing boats in the distance, a living sea that was written off a generation ago. Look south. The southern basin has continued its decline. The Amu Darya is still diverted entirely for Uzbekistan's cotton and agricultural irrigation. The exposed lakebed is being developed for natural gas extraction. The ecology of the South Aral Sea is, by any current assessment, beyond recovery. The same event, the Soviet irrigation decision of the 1950s, produced 2 completely different outcomes depending on a single engineering intervention on a single strait. Kazakhstan is now implementing Phase 2 of the North Aral Recovery Program. The plan is to raise the Kokaral Dam by a further 2 to 4 meters, increasing the water level from 42 to 46 meters, and the total volume from 27 billion to 34 billion cubic meters. The surface area would expand by another 1,000 square kilometers. At a water level of 46 meters, sea waves will reach the rusted docks and cranes of Aralsk's port for the first time in more than 50 years. A city that became famous as a symbol of environmental catastrophe with its ships in the sand will become a coastal city again. Supporting this requires 167 engineering projects across the entire Sirdarya basin, canal lining, laser land leveling of agricultural fields, automated water monitoring sensors, and subsidies for farmers to transition to drip irrigation. The combined goal is to save 500 million cubic meters of water annually from losses in the irrigation network and redirect it north. The Aral Sea will never return to what it was in the 1950s. 68,000 square kilometers of water surface are gone and will not come back. That is a permanent loss that no engineering project will reverse. But the North Aral's recovery proves something specific and transferable. An ecosystem that appears dead can regenerate entirely on its own without biological intervention if the core hydrological conditions are restored to the right parameters. A 13-kilometer concrete wall changed the water chemistry of an inland sea. The sea did the rest. The fish came back without being asked. The birds came back without being invited. The people came back without being told to.